The Illuminati. The very name is enough to cause fear and revulsion in the heart of any sensible, free-thinking individual. Rumored to be the impetus behind both the American and French revolutions of the 18th century, as well as both world wars, the notion of a secretive shadow organization of puppet masters pulling the strings behind every social movement, progressive or not, and every mass calamity has been the source of mass speculation and paranoia throughout history. How did an obscure Masonic offshoot established by a rogue Jesuit priest in 1776 come to encapsule world power, the likes of which is beyond the wildest dreams of even the most greedy of would-be dictators? The truth is, as far as the Illuminati is concerned, very little bedrock evidence for their continued proliferation can be found. The ultimate nature of a secret society is just that, a secret. And perhaps no other society has been so successful in shrouding themselves in mystery, deceit, and misinformation than the Order of the Illuminati. So successful that millions of Americans don't even realize they hold their trademark right in the folds of their wallet, the dollar bill. Look at the backside and observe the enigmatic eye in the pyramid, crowned by the banner Novus Ordo Seclorum, the New World Order. If that's not enough to convince you of the ultimate plot of their designs, then read on. What you refuse to admit just might haunt you in the end. The story of the Illuminati begins in Bavaria in 1770. A Jewish convert to Roman Catholicism, Adam Weishaupt was elected as professor of canon law at the University of Ingolstadt, a chair traditionally held by a Jesuit priest. Despite a subsequent conversion to the Jesuit faith, the 22-year-old Weishaupt still found himself victim of repeated rebukes and character assassination by Jesuit colleagues and superiors. Rather than retaliate, the prank-minded Weishaupt decided to form an exclusive cadre of so-called enlightened ones or perfectibilists, literally the perfected ones, on May 1, 1776, coincidentally the pagan holiday of Beltane, modeled after the degrees and structure of Freemasonry. The overall goal of the Illuminati was to establish a free and just society, without ecclesiastical or political tyranny, in which both men and women were considered equal, and church authorities had no say. To this end, they allegedly sought freedom of speech and a complete overthrow of existing power structures, receiving funding from the House of Rothschild, both historically and currently the leading financiers in global banking, and forging alliances with Freemasonry, whose degree system they adopted into a series of 10 symbolic levels: Media Group, Historical Banking House, Rothschild Family Portraits, Old Freemason Lodge at Stock at Distribute_equally, Novitiate, Minerval, Illuminated Minerval, Illuminatus Minor, Illuminatus Major, Illuminatus Driggans, Priest, Regent, Magus, and Rex. The initial 6 degrees appear steeped in the biblical and Kabbalistic mysteries of Freemasonry. Indeed, it is from these initial degrees that Weishaupt's Illuminati structure found the strongest support from existing Masonic lodges. However, at the level of priest, the candidate was required to renounce and sever all Masonic ties, wearing an oath of devotion solely to the Illuminati. The degree of regent extended this renunciation from conventional political and religious structures even further, with the candidate formally denouncing all ties to social, religious, and political affiliations, and was expected to extend the influence and aims of the Illuminati even further, subverting and infiltrating those very structures they denounced. The order soon grew support from some of the leading political, literary, and social figures of the time, including Ferdinand of Brunswick, foreign diplomat Xavier von Zwack, the writers Wolfgang von Goethe and Gottfried Herder, Duke Karl August of Saxe-Weimar, philosopher Georg Hegel, mystic Karl von Eckartshausen, the elusive Comte de Saint-Germain, and numerous princes, dukes, and barons from Bavaria and beyond. Yet in 1782, delegates from a Bavarian Masonic conference, who had apparently been denied entrance to the upper echelon of the order, formally denounced the Illuminati. Pressure from both the Catholic hierarchy and Masonic lodges forced then-ruler Karl Theodor to ban the Illuminati altogether, and the order was announced as dissolved in 1785. Yet, There is substantial evidence that this dissolution was simply a ruse to hide the activities of the order internationally, particularly in France and the nascent America, where Illuminati tenets and doctrines had a substantial influence on both revolutions. It is known that one of the architects of the French Revolution, Jean-Joseph Mounier, was a member, and there is strong evidence that Thomas Paine, John Hancock, Alexander Hamilton, and Thomas Jefferson were secretly affiliated with the order. Weishaupt himself fled to Gotha, where he was granted amnesty by Duke Ernst II, and from which he continued his base of operations until his death in 1811. As noted previously, Weishaupt drew initial support from the banking dynasty of the Rothschilds, and there is considerable evidence that members of the family took formal initiation into the lodge at its early stages. Other merchants and bankers were well known to have connections to the lodge, including the Swiss Jean Gaspard Schweitzer and the Austrian Ludwig von Goldmann. However, it is through the Rothschilds that Weishaupt drew his strongest financial and social support. A family dynasty that perhaps not so coincidentally were responsible for financing the Napoleonic Wars, the establishment of the US Federal Reserve in 1913, and currently own an estimated 220 banks, including the Bank of England, the Bank of Israel, and the People's Bank of China, as well as controlling interests in such corporations as Microsoft and IBM. And it is from the Rothschilds that the Illuminati perpetuates its most insidious scheme of all, a dynasty consisting of 13 distinct bloodlines. At this point, the reader will probably ask, freedom, equality, liberty? Isn't that the basis of our modern society? What's so insidious about freedom of speech and justice for all? And truth be told, the ideals of freedom of opportunity and discourse ostensibly proposed by the historical Illuminati are noble and commendable. It is well worth noting that Weishaupt was a noted admirer of the philosopher Baruch Spinoza and his fundamental text, the Ethics. Ideally, a free market would uphold legitimate and fair trade mutually beneficial to consumers and financiers. Given that the Rothschild dynasty currently owns an estimated half of the global wealth, the notion of international free market economics in practice is simply erroneous. Given their strong prominence within similar global conglomerates of secretive elite financiers such as the Bilderberg Foundation, and their historically documented practices of financing almost every imaginable war during modern history, as well as their current and publicly stated support of Zionist causes in Israel and abroad, even the most skeptical reader should smell a rat behind the myth of free trade. Let's instead view the Rothschilds for what they are: robber barons of the most nefarious caliber imaginable, and highly successful ones at that. The initial statutes of the Illuminati state that their goal is to put an end to the machinations of the purveyors of injustice, to control them without dominating them. And while that may have been true in a progressively enlightened 18th century European framework, time has shown again and again just how quickly those ideals were corrupted by parties seeking absolute greed and absolute power. These days, the agenda behind the Illuminati's machinations include 1. The establishment of a one-world government, complete with one world military and police and one centralized currency. This is the true promise of the Novus Ordo Seclorum mentioned previously in the chapter. And both the establishment of NATO, the United Nations, and more recently, the European Union, are tangible reminders of the success of the Illuminati's mission. 2. The establishment of a centralized bank controlling all financial transactions. At the heart of the Illuminati, greed is as critical as power and control. The existence of summits such as G8, G12, Bilderberg-sponsored conferences, as well as the recent economic breakdowns that have plagued so much of the United States and Europe, all bear the hallmarks of classic Illuminati design. 3. Advanced microchip monitoring of citizens as a need for surveillance and control. This technotronic method of monitoring, as predicted by Illuminati member Zbigniew Brzezinski in his book Between Two Ages, America's role in the technotronic era, is just one step closer to the ultimate control of the Illuminati begun with the establishment of the Social Security Identification System and barcode product identification. In time, this surveillance has also included digital monitoring of Internet activity, widespread wiretapping techniques, and covert government intelligence agencies. 4. An absolute totalitarian state in which freedom of expression is prohibited and dissenting opinion will be stifled. Widespread physical and character assassinations of those who have set out to expose Illuminati schemes have been well documented. Failing to submit to Illuminati designs, for example, the US Select Service System, IRS review, and even the Registry of Motor Vehicles, can and have resulted in fines and imprisonment. Other more extreme cases have included murder, blackmail, extortion, bankruptcy, and arson. It is this fourth point that is positively critical in assessing the dangers of the Illuminati. They are not merely content with a long and deliberate misinformation campaign, often disseminating conflicting information and supposed leaks about their operations so that none but the most discerning observer can distinguish between falsehood and reality, but actively seek to silence dissent through physical torture and assassination. This methodology was best noted by the assassinations of both President Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy, both men whom, if not directly aware of the designs and plans of the Illuminati, certainly saw a reform in government and economic policy directly in opposition to Illuminati doctrine. Other mysterious deaths the Illuminati may be responsible include the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, which precipitated the start of World War I, the assassination of Mohandas Gandhi, the deaths of Jimmy Hoffa, Marilyn Monroe, and Jane Mansfield, the unexplained cancer of Bob Marley, and even the recent death of erstwhile king of pop Michael Jackson. Both the internal and external symbolism of the Illuminati is rife with occult and esoteric emblems and metaphors, of which the all-seeing eye in the pyramid is perhaps the most notorious. This enigmatic device has entered the popular culture as one of the most enduring symbols, appearing everywhere from the previously noted dollar bill to popular novels, movies, comic books, and video games. The ubiquity of this design has led to a public infatuation with Illuminati symbology, often unwittingly, which may indeed be part of their designs after all. In more recent times, Illuminati-based insignia has become one of the hottest trends in the music industry, with artists such as Jay-Z, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, George Clinton, Rihanna, Madonna, Nicki Minaj, and Tool, to name but a few, all openly displaying distinctively Illuminati-based symbology in videos, album covers, live shows, and promotional photos, be it wittingly or unwittingly. Is this a deliberate automatic traverse? A sort of metaphor wink to the public fascination with the legend and lore of the Illuminati, or all part of a carefully constructed plan to lure younger, more impressionable minds into faithfully adhering to Illuminati schematics? As mentioned earlier, the Illuminati is headed by 13 distinct bloodlines. It is worth noting that the fascination with perpetuating bloodlines is shared in common with the previous chapter's introduction to the Priory of Sion. Much speculation and theories of these bloodlines have been made, relating them to everything from the 12 tribes of Israel mentioned in the book of Genesis, including the lost 13th tribe, commonly held to be the Khazar tribe, to the 12 signs of the zodiac. Given that many prominent figures in government, entertainment, and culture are commonly held to hold some degree of involvement with the Illuminati, it is fair to say that membership is not exclusive to these bloodlines alone. Nonetheless, the prominence of these bloodlines and their respective roles in finance and politics demands strong observance from those actively pursuing research into the Illuminati mechanism. The Rockefeller bloodline. As one of the most obvious and visible bloodlines in the Illuminati genetic strand, the Rockefeller bloodline is overseen currently by David Rockefeller, whose interests include Chase Manhattan Bank, General Electric, Mitsubishi, Exxon, and Mobil Oil. The 99-year-old Rockefeller also has been known to have strong ties to the CIA and the National Security Agency, and is both the founding member of the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations, as well as serving on the member advisory group of the Bilderberg Foundation. Far from denying his involvement in Illuminati schemes, Rockefeller openly admitted it in his 2002 memoirs. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I'm proud of it. The Rothschild bloodline. As previously mentioned in this chapter, the Rothschilds are one of the oldest banking families in international history and were directly behind both the establishment of the Federal Reserve and both the price of gold, as well as its devaluation in 1971, when President Nixon ordered the cancellation of the convertibility of the US dollar to gold, historically known as the Nixon shock. The Rothschild bloodline is currently overseen by both Jacob Rothschild and Benjamin Rothschild, and their combined interests include the LCF Rothschild Trust, RIT Capital, Rio Tinto, a list of over 220 central banks, the Federal Reserve, and the American Bar Association, the Kennedy bloodline, a Celtic bloodline with strong ties to Freemasonry and Scottish aristocracy, and as immigration occurred towards the New World of America, organized crime, and the mafia. It is worth noting that the Kennedy bloodline, a common Gaelic surname, does not immediately implicate that Kennedys globally are Illuminati members, or even closely related. But it stands as a testament to the ruthless bloodthirst of the Illuminati that one of the most prominent descendants was assassinated for allegedly going against official Illuminati policy, the death of John F. Kennedy, which marked the end of an era in American politics and culture. The Astor bloodline. Founded by John Jacob Astor, a German-born fur trader, merchant, investor, and American émigré active in the 18th and 19th centuries, the Astor family, once synonymous with the most elite of the newly moneyed floating in and out of America in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, particularly in New York, appears to have gone out of vogue. But their interest in politics, the British Astor bloodline has had several representatives in Parliament and the Prime Ministry, finance, and reputedly the international drug trade has never waned. This particular bloodline has prominent connections to British and American intelligence agencies, the Pilgrim Society, the Rhodes Scholarship Foundation, and numerous private banks, real estate concerns, and trusts. In addition, the Astor dynasty has had a strong relationship in Freemasonry, John Jacob Astor becoming heavily involved with New York Masonic lodges upon his immigration to the America. A strange feat for a man who supposedly spoke less than a sentence of English and other eccentricities. One descendant, Ava Astor, was an avowed occultist and believed she was the reincarnation of an Egyptian princess, the Bundy bloodline. With strong ties to the worlds of government, research, education, science, philanthropy, and Yale's secretive Skull and Bones Society, the Bundy family isn't one of the more recognizable names to many Americans. But with Bundy family members serving in such key strategic initiatives as the CIA, Atomic Research, Harvey Bundy Sr. served as the chief Pentagon liaison during the fabled Manhattan Project of the 1940s, the military, some of America's leading educational institutions, such as Cornell University, Ohio State, and Harvard University, and allegedly, occultism. It is known that prominent banker Harry Bundy served as a chief adept in a Masonic and Rosicrucian society in Colorado in the early 20th century. That very same lack of recognition makes them all the more dangerous. The Collins bloodline. An enigmatic bloodline with strong ties to military intelligence, law, literature, education, and, strangely enough, the church. The latter becomes all the more astonishing when it is revealed that some of the more prominent figures in the bloodline have been actively involved in Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, and the occult. Numerous family members have been implicated in sex trafficking and organized crime over the years, leading one to watch clearly both the above-ground activities as well as the more clandestine, shadowy natures of this bloodline. The DuPont bloodline. Best known as heirs to the vast chemical and pharmaceutical dynasty established in 1802 as a gunpowder mill by French émigré E.I. DuPont, this bloodline also maintains strong connections to the American government, with numerous paid representatives serving in key positions in the House of Representatives, Congress, and local politics in the state of Delaware. With an estimated combined wealth well into hundreds of billions of dollars, and strong ties to both the Astor and Rockefeller bloodlines, The family played a critical role in securing negotiations for the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, which helped expand the territory of the Americas westward. More recently, the DuPont family made headlines in 1997 when heir John DuPont, an active philanthropist and sports enthusiast who had been diagnosed as paranoid and psychopathic, was convicted of the murder of Olympic wrestler Dave Schultz. However, the family's connection with several other mysterious deaths and disappearances indicate this may not have been likely to be the first instance of foul play, nor is it likely to be the last. The Freeman bloodline. Here, the link to the previous chapter's Priory of Sion is made implicit, as one of the more recent and imminent members of the priory was one Gaylord Freeman, who served as Grand Master from 1963 until 1981. Although in keeping with the priory's innate vows of secrecy, the elderly Freeman publicly denied any involvement or even knowledge of the existence of the society. A well-respected financier, Freeman served as chairman of the First National Bank of Chicago and was a known advisor to both the Nixon and Ford administrations, also serving on the board of the Rockefeller-founded Trilateral Commission. In addition, members of the Freeman family have known connections with numerous philanthropies, as well as serving on the board of the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith. The Lee bloodline, an extremely elusive bloodline operating out of Asia and the South Pacific. It is estimated that members of the Lee bloodline include financiers, investors, and even presidents and premiers in Hong Kong, Singapore, and the People's Republic of China. It has been well documented that David Rockefeller had extensive relations with Chinese Premier Li Peng in the 1980s. The Lee bloodline also has extensive ties to the Tongs and other triads of Chinese organized crime. Above ground, this bloodline maintains interests in Canadian Imperial, Cavendish International, Bank of Commerce, Hong Kong Electric, and American Express, as well as maintaining international relations in trading and financing with the US, the Onassis bloodline. In a DNA strand already consisting of family dynasties who have entered the public lexicon as being synonymous with untold wealth, the Onassis bloodline may be among the more famous. Shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis gained notoriety as the husband of the widowed Jacqueline Kennedy in 1968, while his brother and arch-rival Stavros Niarchos maintained an equally impressive shipping empire and was rumored to be one of the instigators behind the Suez Crisis of 1956, a crisis that sought removal of then-Egyptian President Nasser and effectively crippled transportation along the Suez Canal. The Onassis bloodline has been rumored to have involvement with extortion and bribery tactics since at least World War II, working in collusion with the US and Greek governments, and has been implicated in numerous mysterious kidnappings and deaths, often mysterious drug overdoses, including that of Princess Grace of Monaco. Upon the elder Onassis's death in 1975, Niarchos took control of the bloodline until his death in 1996. It is not certain who currently oversees the dynasty, but there are some indicators that it may be Niarchos' son Spyros, who currently maintains close friendships with numerous financiers and premiers across Europe and the Middle East. The Reynolds bloodline, best known as the progenitors of both R.J. Reynolds and Company, as well as Reynolds Metals, the bloodline maintains an estimated wealth of approximately $80 billion in addition to their monopolization of industries including agriculture and manufacturing. Known for funding lobbyists and research, the Reynolds bloodline has worked closely in conjunction with several US senators and congressmen over the course of some 80 years, orchestrating bribes and payoffs and allegedly working in close conjunction with both organized crime and transportation unions. The Russell bloodline, with its unique blend of biblical prophecy and apocalyptic rapture, the Jehovah's Witnesses sect of evangelical Christianity, which maintains over 9 million adherents worldwide, seems like an unlikely source to find an Illuminati bloodline. Yet its founder, Charles Taze Russell, not only introduced his own eschatological fervor into the Illuminati gene pool, but his ideological descendants, numbering some 120,000 congregations, have been alleged to spread chief Illuminati doctrines, with successful civil rights legislations in several countries, as well as high-profile investigations into criminal and sexual abuse reports on behalf of their congregations. What makes it all the more remarkable is that Russell shares the same blood relation to prominent Freemasons and other shadowy organizations, including Yale's Skull and Bones fraternity, of whom it is said it is funded and operated by the legal trust of the Russell Corporation. It is worth noting that the late Michael Jackson was raised as a Jehovah's Witness until his disassociation in 1987. He is reported to have had a long-standing interest in the Illuminati, and his death in 2009 is still under serious scrutiny, not least of all from family members who still maintain adherence with the sect. The Van Duyn bloodline, one of the more obscure bloodlines that make up the Illuminati. It is said that they are descendants from early Dutch settlers of Manhattan in the 17th century and amassed a fortune as traders, merchants, and manufacturers. It is, however, known that one of the founding members of the Planned Parenthood Federation of America, which, in addition to providing affordable medical counseling, also provides and encourages birth control and abortion, was one Edward Van Duyn, an American physician active in the 1920s and 1930s. Planned Parenthood is known to have received funding from trusts and foundations associated or bearing the direct name of the Astor, Rockefeller, and Reynolds bloodlines. Another interesting Van Duyn connection may be the radical Dutch agitator and anarchist Roel van Duijn, who, as public founder of the Provost Party, orchestrated numerous riots and disturbances throughout the Netherlands in the 1960s and 1970s. Other prominent families who have been known to intermarry into these bloodlines have included the Ford family, the Vanderbilt family, the Hearst family, the Carnegie family, and the Dodge family. One of the ultimate goals of any secret society, as stated previously, is the perpetuation of secrets. And as the penultimate covert secret society, the Illuminati have nearly 250 years and countless wealth behind them, enabling them to specialize in psychological operations and misinformation tactics of the most advanced sort. Perhaps it's all the more fitting that the very term Illuminati translates to the Enlightened Ones. In Latin, the name Lucifer comes from the words lux ferro, or bearer of light. Outside of the above-mentioned bloodlines, there is no accurate count of Illuminati membership. There are no official records of meetings, no official membership rosters, and no record proceedings. They are indeed the archetypal secret society. Yet over the years, numerous names have been brought up in conjunction with the Illuminati, names which, upon close examination, reveal common threads that defy mere coincidence and take on a decidedly more sinister hue. American pediatrician and physician Dr. Benjamin Spock, director Steven Spielberg, music mogul Rick Rubin, actor Tom Cruise, British monarch Queen Elizabeth II, billionaire investor Warren Buffett, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, musician Paul McCartney, Lee Harvey Oswald, assassin Jack Ruby, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, former Eisenhower Secretary of State John Foster Dulles, actress Angelina Jolie, talk show pioneer Johnny Carson, economist John Maynard Keynes, media mogul Oprah Winfrey, former presidents George H.W. Bush Sr. and George W. Bush Jr., children's programming pioneer Jim Henson, British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli, technology innovators Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, musician David Bowie, Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu, entertainer Bob Hope, former Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev, billionaire Richard Branson, artist Salvador Dali, former Vice Presidents Dick Cheney and Gerald Ford, former Presidents Richard Nixon and Franklin D. Roosevelt, musician Prince, diplomat Henry Kissinger, actor Nicolas Cage, former Prime Minister Tony Blair, political pundit William F. Buckley Jr., hip-hop producer Dr. Dre, Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan and Ben Bernanke, basketball player Dennis Rodman, actress and diplomat Shirley Temple Black, former Presidents Dwight D. Eisenhower, Herbert Hoover, and Ronald Reagan, director George Lucas, UN founder Al Hiss, and television evangelist Pat Robertson.